And we are back on the Zero Hour. And with us is Eric Kingson, who is co-director and co-founder of Social Security Works. And the question of the day is, could there be a silver revolution coming among America's seniors? The New York Times quoted Eric in a recent piece about that topic, saying that for whatever the reasons, several social scientists say deteriorating conditions for retirees and older Americans in general, including fears about retirement security, age discrimination, increasing poverty among the elderly, and new threats to cut programs for seniors, could be the impetus for what some are calling a silver revolution. Eric Kingson is professor of social work at Syracuse University's School of Social Work and has a number of other academic appointments as well. He's written a number of books on the topic, and he is primary author of Ties That Bind, The Interdependence of Generations, which is a beautiful and important book. He is primary author of Social Security and Medicare, a policy primer, and the diversity of the baby boom as well. He's also authored more personal books well worth reading, including Lessons from Joan, Living and Loving with Cancer, A Husband's Story, and In Their Own Voices, which presents the experiences and advice of 14 children and youth facing life-threatening illness. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, Richard, love to be on with you. How are you?
Well, it's always great to have you. And this is a topic very, very dear to my heart. And among other things, you are quoted in this article. The article references the fact that the Grey Panthers, an organization founded by Maggie Kuhn in 1970, is not quite as influential as it was, and that Sally Brown, the current director, blames the corporatized media, which has demonized social movements. And you said, I wish Maggie were here. Who is Maggie Kuhn?
Maggie Kuhn was a remarkable woman. She called herself the wrinkled radical. She had worked for many years in church-related YMCA work. She was forced into retirement at age 65, and she and a good friend of hers started this movement. And the subtitle of the Grey Panthers was Youth and Age in Action, or Age and Youth in Action. And Maggie always conceptualized aging as something we all are doing from the day we're born, and that everyone at all ages has a stake in children and also old people and everyone in between.
Well, and so Maggie founded the Grey Panthers and, among other things, managed to get the laws involving mandatory retirement changed, right?
She was very active in that, yes, and along with Claude Pepper, the late Congressman Pepper, who was another remarkable human being. She and others did move that forward. She also challenged, and I think the article, which I think was wonderful, but on terms of, it wasn't about Maggie Kuhn. But when you get to Maggie Kuhn, the thing that Maggie did so successfully was challenge attitudes about the old, both on a personal level, a cultural level, and on a very political level. So she was invited to the signing of the ADA, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, and she tells this story. President Ford, who was president then, goes around and he turns to her and he says, "Young lady, how are you doing today?" And Maggie goes, "Mr. President, I'm not a young lady. I'm an old woman."
Well, that speaks to an important point as we talk about this topic of a silver revolution and whether or not we could see one. You know, it seems to me, and I was thinking of asking you this if we had time, but I'm going to bring it up earlier than I'd planned because that great quote from Maggie Kuhn so illustrates it, which is, it seemed to me for a long time as if the one politically acceptable form of discrimination that still lingers in our culture is age discrimination. That it seems that there's far less, that people can say things about older Americans jokingly or whatever in popular media, mass media, popular culture. There can be humor that they would never get away with saying about minorities or the disabled or religious minorities. Do you have that impression that we have a ways to go?
Absolutely. And Bill Maher, on his show the other day, a couple of weeks ago, did a despicable rant about the old and arguing that the old were cannibalizing the young. I think it's an attitude that's been put forward. I mean, the irony is that kind of attitude towards old is only attitudes towards ourselves because we're all old. But beyond that, it's this kind of stereotype has a political use. It's been used to undermine programs that affect older Americans. But the irony is, as you wrote very well in Huffington Post the other day, the attempts to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the attempts to roll back the Great Society and the New Deal, it's going to hurt our children far more than it's going to hurt today's old. Because what, in the name of trying to protect kids and sort of the crocodile tears for children, what they're really doing is cannibalizing our children's benefits. And in terms of the old, they like to use the stereotype, as you're correct, that old people are taking advantage of their young. They're busy jumping on trampolines in Sun City and spending their kids' inheritances, when in fact the larger issue among older people is certainly maintaining a decent standard of living, but they're also concerned with legacy. They're concerned with some very real human values in their families.
Well, and so to me, what that points to, and it's certainly been a major theme of your work, it was a theme of Maggie Kuhn's work, is the bond among generations, and the notion that, as you said, we're all old or will be someday, and I think there's a through line here that says, and then perhaps this is why you said I wish Maggie was here, but we need to embody her spirit, I guess. We've got a situation where Bill Maher can do a routine like that. Alan Simpson. I'll tell you a quick story.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I was on the Young Turks, which is a very popular internet program, Cenk Uygur basically pitched to millennials and younger people, although Cenk himself is about 40, and I'm far and away the oldest person who appears on the with any regularity on the Young Turks. And someone sent a tweet.
We're going to start the Old Turks pretty soon.
Yeah, we're getting there. But, that's my point, though, is somebody tweeted, Eskow, he's the old fart who appears on the Young Turks. And, they probably didn't mean any harm by it. But can you imagine if they'd used an ethnic slur instead?
Absolutely.
So I guess my point is, and I'm not as old as I'm going to be, God willing. So I guess my point is that, doesn't it begin with this kind of, whether it's with poor people or dark-skinned people or sick people, doesn't it begin by dehumanizing the other when in fact they're really ourselves?
No, it's very much, that's absolutely correct. And, you mentioned Alan Simpson. Alan Simpson has made a career on TV and sound bites talking about greedy geezers, about old people with their veins popping out, showing up as lobbyists. He's despicable. He's funny. To me, a guy like Alan Simpson is like the classroom bully that we all kind of tried to stay away from. Very funny guy, but you either stayed away from him or you allied yourself carefully. The guy is funny, but his comments are harmful to other people. Here's a multimillionaire, born a multimillionaire, pretending to be folksy and using the most despicable language about older people, pretending to care about children but voting against welfare benefits for low-income children. In 1996, he voted to eliminate the right to benefits for poor children. At the same time, he says, I'm here to protect the little people. But the littlest of the little people, he's not. And the little people is just a horrible term. So, yeah, I think you're onto something, Richard. I think the notion, the dehumanization that is used as a tool to undermine policy agendas, to undermine human beings, need to be attacked. I also put some blame, frankly, on the White House as well, that the White House has been at arm's length from older people. I thought our president coming in had a wonderful opportunity to develop a new understanding about old age and about the role of older people. Older people, of course, contribute to communities, and they have an obligation to do that. We have obligations to give to others throughout our lives and to be contributing where we can. Our president seemed to only think about the old as receiving benefits, not thinking of the benefit of the work they had done to earn these benefits. He does many good things, but he really has missed the boat in terms of reaching out and identifying the concerns of older people, and older people of all races, all income, and the like.
Well, so what do we? Let's pivot. I think that's very true. I think that's very well said. So the Silver Revolution. How do we start it? What's the first step? Do we? Now I'll give you my personal bias, and I suspect it's one you may share. Saul Alinsky and others say you mobilize around issues a community can agree upon. And to me, one of those issues is Social Security. Another is Medicare. But how do we frame these not as issues where the young, the irony of the Social Security battle is it's always, well, the old people, it's presented as the old people are defending their benefits, but none of the projected Social Security cuts would affect people collecting it now. So they're actually fighting on behalf of younger generations because they know how important it is. So maybe my idea is wrong, but can we crystallize the Silver Revolution around an issue like that?
Well, and with one kind of caveat that I know you totally understand, you've written on it, which is the one cut that would affect older people today is the chain CPI. And thanks to a lot of pushing by a lot of groups, that's out of the president's budget and it's off the agenda right now. But by and large, totally right. The cuts being proposed in Social Security are going to hurt people in their 50s who are heading towards horrible retirements if we don't expand Social Security protections. It's going to hurt people in their 40s. I think the mobilization part
and we've only got about 30 seconds, Eric. I'm sorry about that.
Two pieces to the mobilization. One is people's self-interest, absolutely. Two is the insult of talking to older people as if talking about entitlements. Darn straight old people are entitled, as are disabled and others, because they've earned it, they've worked for it. But the negativity that comes from that is annoying to a lot of older people. The other thing is old people are not, as you said, just concerned about themselves. Aligning and developing an agenda related cross-generations critical.
We'll have to leave it there, but that's a great summary. And with that, we've been speaking with Eric Kingson, co-director and co-founder of Social Security Works. We will be right back, continuing the Silver Revolution and the other revolutions here on the Zero Hour.